On the night of her wedding, as the stars blinked softly in the sky, Ijeoma sat alone in the cold darkness of their hut, waiting. The feast had ended, the guests had returned home, but her husband, Obinna, was nowhere to be found. With every passing hour, her heart tightened with fear and confusion. By dawn, he had vanished completely, leaving behind only the echo of his absence. No one knew where he had gone, and no matter how hard they searched, there was no trace of him. The village of Umaga was small and close-knit. When Ijoma and Obinna decided to marry, everyone had known about it. They were the couple that had been whispered about for years. Ever since childhood, it was a love bond of friendship, nurtured by laughter, and held firm by the kinds of bond only seen between two souls destined to be together. Their wedding was the talk of the entire village, a grand affair full of joy, music, and dancing. But all of that joy was ripped away that night, replaced by the looming shadow of a mystery no one could solve. For days, Ijoma refused to leave the house, hoping that Obinna would return. The elders had sent word to the nearby village. Hunters had scoured the forest, and diviners had tried to call upon the gods for answers. But there was nothing. Obinna had simply disappeared as if swallowed by the earth. Ijoma's heart was shattered. She could not understand how the man who had danced with her under the moon, who had whispered promises of forever in her ears, could just vanish on their wedding night. At first, she thought something terrible had happened to him. But as the weeks turned into months, she began to lose hope. The whispers in the village grew louder. Some said he had run away, that perhaps he had not loved her as much as she thought. Others said he had fallen victim to some curse or had been taken by spirits. But Ijoma knew better. Obinna was not a man who would live without reason. She still believed he would return, though with every passing day, her faith waned. One evening, as the sun began to set behind the hills, and the village prepared for the night, Ijoma heard a commotion at the village gate. She rushed outside to see what was happening, her heart pounding as if it already knew the answer. And there, standing tall at the entrance of the village, was Obinna. For a brief moment, relief flooded Ijoma's heart. He had come back. Her husband, her love, had returned. But that relief was short-lived because Obinna was not alone. Standing beside him was another woman, dressed in vibrant, unfamiliar clothes, her face adorned with strange markings. She stood close to him, her hand resting on his arm, as though she belonged there. Ijoma's leg wobbled, and she nearly collapsed where she stood. The village fell silent as people stared, unsure of what to say or do. Slowly, Obinna walked towards her, his face expressionless. The man who had disappeared so mysteriously on their wedding night now stood before her, a stranger with another woman by his side. Obinna, what is this? Ijoma's voice trembled as she asked the question everyone was too afraid to voice. He didn't meet her eyes as he spoke, his words cutting through the air like a sharp knife. This is Amara, my wife. Ijoma's words spun. His wife? How could that be? She was his wife. She had waited for him, prayed for his return, and now he stood before her with another woman. I don't understand, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. You left. You disappeared without a word. Obinna finally looked at her, but his eyes were cold, distant, as though the love they had once shared was a distant memory. Ijeoma, I had never meant to hurt you. Things happened. I had to leave. It's complicated. Complicated? Ijeoma repeated, her voice rising in disbelief. You disappeared on our wedding night, Obinna. I have been waiting for months, and you return with another woman? How could you do this to me? The villagers who had gathered around them watched in stunned silence. Some whispered in disbelief, while others shook their heads in pity. Obinna shifted uncomfortably, his voice softer now, but no less painful. I didn't choose this. I was taken away by circumstances beyond my control. But you are back now, Ijeoma said, stepping closer, her tears threatening to spill over. You are back, and we can. No, he cut her off, his voice faint. I cannot return to the life we once had. I am a different man now. Amara is my responsibility. I cannot abandon her. Ijeoma felt as though the ground has been pulled from beneath her. This was not the man she had married. This was not the man who had promised to love her forever. And yet, here was he, standing in front of her, telling her that their life together was over. Without another word, Obinna turned and walked away, leaving Ijeoma standing there, her heart shattered once more. The days that followed were a blur of sorrow and confusion. Ijeoma struggled to make sense of what had happened. Obinna had offered no real explanation, and though he had returned to the village, he had moved into a separate hut with Amara, living as though Ijeoma no longer exists. The villagers were torn. Some pitied Ijeoma, while others whispered that perhaps this was fate's way of revealing the truth about Obinna. But no one could explain the mystery of this disappearance or why he had come back with another woman. Ijeoma, heartbroken and betrayed, spent her days in silence, unable to move past the pain. She had loved Obinna with everything she had, and now that love had been thrown back in her face. But as the weeks passed, something within her began to stir a quiet resolve that grew stronger each day. She could not control what happened, but she could choose how to move on. Ijeoma knew that she had to rebuild her life, even if it was without the man she had once thought she would spend it with. Slowly, she began to emerge from her grief, finding strength in her work, in the support of her family, and in the knowledge that she had survived the worst heartbreak imaginable. As for Obinna, no one ever truly knew what had happened to him during the months he was gone. Some said he had been taken by strange forces. Others claimed he had simply run away from his responsibility. But in the end, it didn't matter. Ijeoma had learned a harsh, painful truth about life. It is often unpredictable, and not everyone's love story has a happy ending. But even in the face of betrayal and loss, she had found a way to keep moving forward, and that perhaps was the greatest strength of all. In the months that followed, Ijeoma worked tirelessly to rebuild her life, though the pain of Obinna's betrayal still echoed within her heart. Her parents and friends tried to offer comfort, but they couldn't take away the weight of her grief. She often found herself staring into the distance, remembering the joy she had once felt and wondering how it had all gone so wrong. Yet, beneath the sorrow, there was a fire growing inside her, a determination not to be consumed by the hurt that had come her way. Ijeoma was not the kind of woman to remain a victim of her circumstances. She had always been strong, even when life had tried to break her, and this time was no different. The first sign of change came one afternoon when Ijeoma decided to visit the market, something she hadn't done since Obinna's return. As she walked through the village, people greeted her warmly, though she could feel the pity in their eyes. She kept her head high, determined not to let their whispers define her. At the market, she ran into Nneka, a childhood friend who had always been a voice of reason in Ijeoma's life. Ijeoma, it's good to see you out and about, Nneka said, her tone gentle but firm. I had to get out of the house, Ijeoma replied, trying to sound more upbeat than she felt. Nneka gave her a knowing look. You don't have to pretend with me. I know it's been hard, but you are stronger than this. You can't let him destroy you. Ijeoma sighed, grateful for Nneka's honesty. I know, but it's not easy. I loved him, Nneka, and now he's with her. Nneka placed a hand on Ijeoma's shoulder. Obinna made his choice, and you have to make yours. Don't let his action control your future. You still have a life to live, Ijeoma. The words stuck with her. That night, as Ijeoma lay in bed, staring at the roof of her heart, she realized that Nneka was right. Obinna had shattered her heart, but she could choose how to piece it back together. She couldn't change the past, but she could control what came next. Over the few weeks, Ijeoma threw herself into her work, tending to her family's farm and helping with village affairs. She started attending gatherings again, even though seeing Obinna and Amara together still made her stomach churn. She wasn't the same woman she had been before, but she was finding a new strength in herself, a strength that wasn't tied to her past with Obinna. As time passed, the villagers began to see Ijeoma not as the woman who had been abandoned, but as a symbol of resilience. She had faced heartbreak, betrayal, and the loss of a future she had once dreamed of. But she hadn't crumbled. She was still standing, and that inspired others who had faced their own struggle. One day, as Ijeoma walked in the fields, she noticed a stranger approaching from the distance. He was tall and carried himself with a quiet confidence. Yet, there was something gentle in his eyes. When he reached her, he introduced himself as Chima, a trader from the neighboring village who had recently moved to Umuaga. I have heard about you, Chima said, smiling warmly. The woman with the strongest spirit in the village. Ijeoma raised an eyebrow, half amused. Is that what they say? They say you have been through a lot and come out stronger on the other side. Ijeoma didn't know how to respond. She had never seen herself as strong. She just someone who had survived. But there was something in Chima's eyes that made her believe he saw more in her than she saw in herself. Over the next few months, Chima and Ijeoma grew close. He was kind and patient, never pressing her about her past, but always offering a shoulder to lean on when she needed it. Slowly, Ijeoma began to open up to him, sharing the pain she had buried deep inside her heart. And with each conversation, she found herself healing a little more. Chima's presence in her life was like a gentle balm, soothing the wounds that Obinna had left behind. He never tried to replace what she had lost, but instead helped her see that there was still a future worth fighting for. One evening, as they sat together watching the sunset, Chima turned to her and said, Ijeoma, you deserve happiness, real happiness, not the kind that is tied to someone else's choice. but the kind that comes from within. Ijeoma looked at him, feeling a warmth she hadn't felt in a long time. I don't know if I am ready for that yet. Chima smiled softly. You don't have to be ready right now, but when you are, know that you deserve it. As the month turned into a year, Ijeoma's life took on a new rhyme, one that wasn't dictated by the pain of the past, but by the hope of what was to come. She and Chima grew closer, and though she still carried the scars of her betrayal, she no longer let them define her. Obinna and Amara remained in the village, living their life as though nothing had happened. But Ijeoma no longer looked at them with bitterness or pain. She had let go of the anger that once consumed her, choosing instead to focus on her own journey. One day, as Ijeoma stood by the river, watching the water flow steadily downstream, she realized something profound. Life was like the river, constantly moving, always changing. Sometimes it carried you down paths you didn't expect, and other time it washed away what you thought you couldn't live without. But no matter what, it kept flowing. And so Ijoma decided to keep flowing too. She knew that the road ahead wouldn't always be easy. There would be challenges and setbacks, but she always knew that she was no longer the woman who had once been left waiting in the darkness. She had found a light within herself, a strength that no one could take away. And with that strength, Ijoma walked forward, ready to face whatever the future might bring. Thank you so much for watching this very interesting video. Please do not forget to like, share, subscribe, and leave your own comment.